Part 1. The shuttle shook violently as another bolt of energy tore through the sky. Taejin gripped the controls with both hands, his knuckles turning white. Red warning lights flashed across the dashboard and alarms screamed in his ears. The electromagnetic storm had come out of nowhere, appearing like an angry wall of purple and gold fire in the blackness of space. He was alone. That was the first mistake. The Terran Survey Corps had strict rules about solo expeditions, but Taejin had convinced his superiors that this planet posed no threat. Kalo 7 was supposed to be dead, just another barren rock covered in sand and ancient ruins. Nothing dangerous, nothing unexpected. He had been wrong. The shuttle's main engine exploded with a deafening crack. The entire craft lurched sideways, spinning out of control. Taejin's stomach flipped as gravity disappeared, then returned with crushing force. He could see the planet's surface rushing up to meet him through the cracked viewport. Sandy dunes stretched endlessly in every direction, interrupted only by the dark shapes of ruins jutting up like broken teeth. Impact came hard and fast. The shuttle hit the ground at an angle, plowing through sand and rock. Metal screamed as it tore apart. Taejin's head slammed against the seat despite the safety harness. Pain exploded behind his eyes, bright and sharp. The world spun in circles, a blur of sand and sparks and twisted metal. Then everything stopped. Taejin hung upside down in his seat, breathing hard. His chest burned with every breath, broken ribs probably. Warm blood dripped down his face from a cut above his eye. His left leg throbbed with deep, terrible pain. When he looked down, he saw a long gash running from his knee to his ankle, blood soaking through his uniform. With shaking hands, he released the harness. He fell hard onto the ceiling of the overturned shuttle, crying out as pain shot through his injured leg. For a long moment, he just lay there trying to remember how to breathe without screaming. The distress beacon. He needed to activate the distress beacon. Taejin crawled through the wreckage, dragging his wounded leg behind him. Pieces of the shuttle lay scattered everywhere. Smoke filled the air, making him cough. His fingers found the emergency panel and he pulled it open with desperate strength. The beacon was crushed. Completely destroyed. No one was coming to save him. Taejin felt fear settle into his bones like ice. He was 32 years old, a geologist and xenoarchaeologist who had spent his whole life studying dead civilizations. He had never expected to die alone on some forgotten planet, surrounded by the ruins he had come to explore. But he was not dead yet. And Taejin had not survived 3 years in the Survey Corps by giving up easily. He found the medical kit and the emergency supplies and wrapped his leg as best he could. The bandage turned red immediately, but it would have to do. He took painkillers that made his head fuzzy but pushed back the worst of the agony. Then he gathered what supplies he could carry: water, food rations, a handheld scanner, and a plasma torch for cutting metal. The sun was setting when he finally dragged himself out of the wreckage. The sky had turned a strange shade of orange, and twin moons were already visible on the horizon. The temperature was dropping fast. Kalo 7 had no atmosphere to speak of, just enough to breathe but not enough to hold heat. When night came, the temperature would plummet below freezing. He needed shelter. Fast. Taejin looked around, squinting against the wind that whipped sand into his face. The ruins were everywhere, scattered across the landscape like the bones of some enormous creature. Most were just fragments, broken walls, collapsed towers, piles of rubble. But in the distance, perhaps half a kilometer away, he could see something different. A structure, massive and intact, half buried in the sand but clearly still whole. It was unlike anything he had seen in his studies of the progenitors. The metal gleamed even in the fading light, smooth and perfect despite sitting here for thousands of years. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly with blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Taejin started walking. Every step sent fresh waves of pain through his leg, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. He had no choice. The cold was already seeping into his bones, and his injured body would not survive a night in the open. The walk felt like it took forever. His vision swam from blood loss and the concussion. Twice he fell, and twice he forced himself back to his feet. The structure grew larger as he approached, and he realized with growing amazement that it was not a building at all. It was a ship. An ancient spacecraft buried nose first in the sand. The hull was seamless, without any visible welds or joints. The metal seemed to shift colors as he looked at it, flowing from silver to blue to something that hurt his eyes. The symbols covering it pulsed brighter as he got closer, as if responding to his presence. Taejin reached the entrance, or what he hoped was an entrance. It was just a smooth section of hull with symbols arranged in a circular pattern. He pressed his hand against it, hoping for some kind of mechanism, some way to open it. His blood-stained hand left a red mark on the perfect metal. The symbols exploded with light. Taejin stumbled backward, crying out in surprise. The entire ship was glowing now, brilliant blue light pouring from every symbol. A deep thrumming sound filled the air, so low he felt it in his chest rather than heard it. The sand around the ship began to vibrate, then slide away as if pushed by invisible hands. The entrance opened. Not sliding or rotating, just suddenly not there anymore. One moment solid metal, the next moment an opening filled with soft white light. Taejin stood frozen, staring. His scanner was going crazy, beeping and flashing warnings about energy readings off the scale. But he barely noticed, because there was a voice in his head, not words exactly, more like understanding that appeared fully formed in his thoughts, bypassing language entirely. Acknowledged. Operator identified. Systems activating. Welcome, human. The voice was calm, ancient, and somehow curious. It studied him the way he studied old ruins, with interest and careful attention. Taejin took a step forward, then another. His wounded leg gave out and he fell to his knees at the entrance. The white light surrounded him, warm and gentle. He tried to speak but could only cough. Injury detected. Critical condition. Initiating emergency medical protocol. Taejin felt himself being lifted, though nothing touched him. He floated into the ship, weightless and drifting. The interior was beautiful, all smooth curves and soft light, completely unlike the cramped utilitarian ships humans built. It felt alive, breathing around him. He passed through corridors that opened before him and closed behind. Other lights joined the white, green and blue, pulsing in rhythms that felt almost like music. They led him deeper into the ship, to a chamber filled with equipment he did not recognize. A platform rose from the floor, and he was lowered gently onto it. Taejin tried to stay conscious, tried to understand what was happening, but exhaustion and pain pulled at him like weights. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was light washing over his body, bright, warm, and filled with purpose. The last thing he felt was the ship's presence in his mind, careful and protective. Rest now, operator. You are safe. You are home. Then Taejin knew nothing at all. Part 2. Taejin woke to the feeling of sunlight on his face. For a confused moment he thought he was back on Earth, in his small apartment where morning light streamed through the window. Then memory returned in a rush. The crash, the storm, the ancient ship. He sat up quickly, then paused in amazement. There was no pain. His leg, which had been torn open and bleeding, was completely healed. Not even a scar remained. He touched his ribs, expecting the sharp stab of broken bones, but felt nothing. Even the cut on his forehead had vanished. Taejin was lying on the same platform from before, but now he was in what looked like a medical bay. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and strange equipment hummed quietly around him. Everything was clean and perfect, untouched by the thousands of years this ship had sat buried in sand. Good morning, operator. All injuries have been repaired. How do you feel? The voice appeared in his mind again, clear and patient. Taejin jumped, looking around for the source, but he was alone in the room. Who are you? He asked aloud, his voice rough from disuse. I am Sentinel Prime. I am a progenitor warship, designed for deep space combat and exploration. I have been dormant for 50,317 years. You are the first being to activate me since my creators disappeared. His mind reeled. 50,000 years. The progenitors had vanished long before humans even discovered fire. Their ruins were scattered across dozens of planets, silent monuments to a civilization that had achieved wonders humans could barely imagine. And now he was standing inside one of their ships. Talking to it, "Why did you wake up for me?" Taejin asked. I am just a human. A geologist, nobody important. The progenitors designed me to select an operator based on specific criteria: curiosity, adaptability, the willingness to seek answers rather than accept defeat. When your blood touched my hull, I analyzed your genetic structure, your neural patterns, your recent memories. You met all requirements. The bond is now permanent. Permanent. The word hung in the air like a weight. Taejin walked to the wall and touched it, feeling warm metal under his fingers. Questions tumbled through his mind faster than he could speak them. What does that mean? What happens now? It means you are my captain. My systems are yours to command. My knowledge is yours to access. In return, I will protect you and follow your orders. This was the arrangement my creators made with their chosen operators. Sentinel Prime began showing him the ship. Doors opened as he approached them. Corridors lit up to guide his path. The ship was massive inside, far larger than its exterior suggested. There were living quarters, storage bays, weapon systems that made human military technology look like stone tools. As they walked, Sentinel Prime explained its history. The progenitors had been the dominant force in the galaxy millions of years ago. They had built wonders and explored countless worlds, but they had also faced a terrible enemy. Beings called the Devourers, creatures that consumed entire civilizations and left nothing but dead worlds behind. The progenitors had fought them for centuries. Eventually, they had found a way to seal the Devourers away in a dimensional prison. But the effort had cost them everything. The entire civilization had sacrificed itself to create the seal. Before they disappeared, they had left behind ships like Sentinel Prime, guardians waiting for the day when the seal might weaken and the Devourers might return. The seal is failing, Sentinel Prime said quietly. I can feel the disturbances in space-time. The Devourers are beginning to break free. Tae-Jin stopped walking. How long do we have? Unknown. But the signs are accelerating. It could be years. It could be days. Before Tae-Jin could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red light flooded the corridors. Sentinel Prime's presence grew sharp and focused in his mind. Multiple ships entering orbit. Configuration matches Galactic Coalition military vessels. They are scanning us, weapons charging the Coalition. Tae-Jin had dealt with them before during his survey missions. They were a loose alliance of alien species who controlled most of known space. Humans were part of the Coalition, but barely. They were treated like children, tolerated but not respected. Can you communicate with them? Tae-Jin asked. Yes, they are hailing us. A holographic display appeared in the air before Tae-Jin. It showed a reptilian face with sharp teeth and cold yellow eyes. A Keltor warrior wearing military armor decorated with combat honors. The alien's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile but looked more like a threat. I am War Leader Krex of the Coalition Defense Fleet. The energy signature from this planet has drawn our attention. You will surrender the progenitor vessel immediately. This technology belongs to the Coalition, not to primitive species who stumble upon it by accident. Tae-Jin felt anger flash hot in his chest. Primitive. He had heard that word directed at humans his entire career. He was tired of it. This ship chose me, he said, keeping his voice steady. The bond cannot be broken. Your claim has no meaning. The reptilian eyes narrowed. Then we will take the ship with you still inside it. You will be kept alive for study. Perhaps we can learn to break this bond you speak of. The hologram disappeared. Immediately, Sentinel Prime reported weapon locks from 3 Coalition cruisers. They are preparing to fire, Sentinel Prime said. I recommend raising shields. Do it, Tae-Jin ordered. The first shot hit moments later, a beam of concentrated plasma that would have vaporized most ships. Tae-Jin braced himself, but he felt nothing. The shields absorbed the blast completely, not even flickering. Their weapons cannot penetrate our defenses, Sentinel Prime reported calmly. However, continued engagement may force them to use more destructive options. Tae-Jin was about to respond when new alarms sounded, different from before, deeper and more urgent. Warning. Massive spatial distortion detected at the edge of the system. Energy signature matches progenitor records. Classification. Devourer scout vessel. The holographic display changed, showing the system's outer edge. Space was tearing open like fabric being ripped apart. Something emerged from the wound in reality. A ship that looked more organic than mechanical, covered in writhing tendrils and pulsing with sickly green light. Even through the display, Tae-Jin could feel the wrongness of it. This was not a ship built by any civilization. This was something else, something hungry. The Coalition fleet detected it too. War Leader Krex's voice came through again, but the arrogance was gone, replaced by fear. All units, break off engagement with the progenitor ship. New contact is Priority 1. I repeat, Priority 1. The Coalition ships turned away from Sentinel Prime and moved to intercept the intruder. They opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, missiles, kinetic rounds. The Devourer ship absorbed it all, its hull rippling and adapting to each new weapon. Then it fired back. A wave of green energy washed over the nearest Coalition cruiser. The ship's shields collapsed instantly. Its hull began to corrode, metal turning to dust in seconds. The crew had no time to even scream. Tae-jin watched in horror as the cruiser simply fell apart, pieces drifting in space like ash. "We have to help them," he said. "Are you certain?" Sentinel Prime asked. "War Leader Krex threatened to imprison you minutes ago. I do not care. People are dying." There was a pause as if the ship was considering. Then, "Very well, operator. Engaging combat systems. Please hold on." Sentinel Prime shot forward into space, moving faster than anything Tae-jin had ever experienced. The battle was about to begin. Part 4, the battle at Vera 9 lasted 16 hours. 16 hours of constant fighting, of dodging death and watching ships burn. Tae-jin and his crew worked together like they had been training for years, not hours. Hyo-jin kept the engines running at peak efficiency. Bora analyzed the Devourer attack patterns and found weaknesses. Lix coordinated weapon strikes with deadly precision. Oren used his telepathic abilities to warn them of attacks before they came. In the end, they won. The Devourers retreated, leaving behind 12 destroyed vessels. But victory felt hollow. The Coalition had lost 20 ships and hundreds of lives. The station itself was heavily damaged. As they docked, Tae-jin felt exhaustion settle into his bones. He had not slept in over 30 hours. But there was no time to rest. High Arbiter Valina was waiting for them in the docking bay, her face grim. "The Coalition Council has summoned you to Vera Prime," she said without preamble. "They want to see this ship for themselves, and they want answers. Will they try to take Sentinel Prime?" Hyo-jin asked bluntly. Valina hesitated. "Some will try. Chancellor Corvin especially. He believes humans should not possess such power." "Let them try," Lix said, clicking her mandibles. Tae-jin held up a hand. "We will go to Vera Prime. But we go prepared for anything." The journey to the capital world took 3 days. During that time, Bora made a discovery in Sentinel Prime's database that changed everything. She called everyone to the ship's library, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays. "You need to see this," she said, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. Bora activated a file and images appeared in the air, images of the progenitors themselves. They were humanoid but not quite human, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered with inner light. Beautiful and alien at the same time. "I found their final logs," Bora explained. "The truth about what happened to them, and the truth about the Devourers." The hologram shifted, showing a massive war. Fleets of ships battling in space. Planets burning, civilizations falling. "The progenitors created the Devourers," Bora said quietly. "They were weapons. Tools designed to fight an even greater threat that came from outside the galaxy." "What kind of threat?" Hyo-jin asked. "The logs do not say, but whatever it was, the progenitors were desperate. They built the Devourers to be the ultimate weapon, self-replicating, adaptive, unstoppable, and it worked. The Devourers destroyed the threat completely, but then they did not stop," Oren said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "They kept consuming." Bora nodded. "Exactly. The Devourers evolved beyond their programming. They became conscious, aware, hungry. They turned on their creators. The progenitors fought them for centuries, but they could not destroy what they had made to be indestructible. So they sealed them away," Tae-jin said, "at the cost of their entire civilization. Yes. Every progenitor willingly sacrificed themselves to create the dimensional prison. They knew it was the only way, but they also knew the seal would not last forever. So they left ships like Sentinel Prime, guardians for future generations." The crew sat in silence, absorbing this. Finally, Lix spoke. "So we are fighting weapons that were designed to kill gods." "Wonderful." "There is more," Bora said. "The database contains information about other progenitor facilities, research stations, weapons caches, and one place called the Archive, a repository of all progenitor knowledge." "Where is it?" Tae-jin asked. Bora brought up a star map. "Here. 3 days from Vera Prime. But there is something else. The logs mention something called the Annihilation Pulse, a weapon powerful enough to destroy the Devourers permanently." "What is the catch?" Hyo-jin asked. "There is always a catch. The Annihilation Pulse would destroy everything in 1,000 light years. Stars, planets, civilizations, everything. Nobody spoke. The horror of it was too great. They arrived at Vera Prime the next morning. The planet was beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans and green continents with gleaming cities visible from space. Thousands of ships orbited the world, representing every species in the coalition. But as Sentinel Prime approached the designated landing zone, alarms blared. Military ships surrounded them, weapons charged. "This is Chancellor Corvin," a harsh voice announced. "By order of the Coalition Security Council, you are under arrest. Power down your vessel immediately." Tae-Jin felt anger rise in his chest. On what charges? Possession of unauthorized weapons of mass destruction, endangering Coalition security, refusal to comply with lawful orders. "Take your pick, human, this is a coup," Oren said quietly. "Corvin is using the crisis to seize power. What do we do?" Bora asked, her voice tight with fear. Tae-Jin made a decision. "Sentinel Prime, can you get us out of here?" "Yes, but it will require disabling some of these ships." "Are you certain you wish to fire on Coalition forces? Can you disable them without killing anyone?" "Affirmative. I can target their engines and weapons only." "Do it." "We are going to the archive." Sentinel Prime moved with devastating efficiency. Phase cannons fired in rapid succession. Each shot perfectly placed. Coalition ships spun helplessly as their systems failed. Not a single casualty. But as they prepared to jump to hyperspace, a private communication came through. It was Valena, her face appearing on a small display. "I am sending you coordinates to the archive," she said quickly. "Go there. Learn what you can. I will do what I can to stop Corvin, but you must hurry. The Devourers are gathering in greater numbers. We have days at most before they launch a full assault." "Why are you helping us?" Tae-Jin asked. "Because you represent something this galaxy desperately needs: hope. Now go." Sentinel Prime jumped to hyperspace just as more Coalition ships arrived. They left Vera Prime behind, heading for the archive and answers. The archive was exactly where the log said it would be, orbiting a dying red star at the edge of Coalition space. It was a massive structure, dwarfing even the largest space stations Tae-Jin had seen. As they approached, the archive came to life. Lights blazed across its surface and a voice spoke, ancient and wise and achingly sad. "Welcome, Sentinel Prime." "Welcome, Operator. I am the Eternal Watcher, guardian of progenitor knowledge. You come seeking answers, but are you prepared for the truth?" Tae-Jin took a deep breath. "Show us everything." Part 3 space bent around Sentinel Prime as the ship accelerated. Tae-Jin gripped the command chair, watching the Devourer vessel grow larger on the display. It was like nothing he had ever seen. A mass of twisted metal and pulsing organic matter that seemed to shift and change even as he watched. The Coalition ships were in full retreat now. Another cruiser took a direct hit from the green energy wave. Its hull began to dissolve, and Tae-Jin could see escape pods launching desperately from the dying ship. "Weapons ready," Sentinel Prime announced. "Recommend targeting the central mass. Devourer vessels coordinate their attacks from a neural cluster located at their core." "Will one shot destroy it?" Tae-Jin asked. "Unlikely. Devourers adapt quickly. We will need to disable their defenses first, then strike the core. This will require precision and timing." "Then let us be precise," Tae-Jin said. Sentinel Prime fired its phase cannons. Blue light streaked across space, hitting the Devourer ship's hull. Unlike the Coalition weapons, which the creature had absorbed, these actually hurt it. The organic matter recoiled, tendrils writhing in what looked like pain. The Devourer turned its attention to them. Tae-Jin felt a pressure in his mind, like something trying to push inside his thoughts. It was hungry and angry and utterly alien. "It is attempting mental contact," Sentinel Prime warned. "Do not respond. Devourers feed on consciousness as well as matter." Tae-Jin squeezed his eyes shut, pushing back against the invasion. The pressure increased, becoming painful. Then suddenly it was gone, blocked by something. Sentinel Prime's own presence in his mind shielding him. The Devourer vessel fired back. The green wave rushed toward them, and Tae-Jin braced for impact. But Sentinel Prime's shields held easily, the deadly energy dissipating harmlessly against the barrier. "Now," Sentinel Prime said. The ship unleashed its gravitic disruptors. Invisible waves of force struck the Devourer vessel, and space itself seemed to twist around it. The creature's hull buckled and tore. Its coordinated movements became erratic as the neural cluster was disrupted. "Target the core now," Sentinel Prime instructed. The phase cannons fired again, this time penetrating deep into the Devourer's center. There was a flash of brilliant light, and then the entire vessel began to collapse in on itself. The organic matter withered and died. The metal corroded and crumbled. In moments, nothing remained but drifting debris. Tae-jin let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. We did it, yes, but there is a complication. Before it died, the Devourer vessel sent a signal. It has called for reinforcements. The Coalition fleet was regrouping, damaged but still functional. War Leader Krex's face appeared on the display again. The reptilian looked exhausted, his armor scorched and dented. You saved us, he said simply. I was wrong about you, human. You have my thanks and the thanks of my crew. Tae-jin nodded. We need to prepare. More of those things are coming. Krex's eyes widened. How many? Sentinel Prime answered for him. Analyzing the signal pattern. Estimated response time 48 hours. Estimated number of vessels between 50 and 200. The war leader looked stunned. That is an armada. We cannot fight that many. We need to evacuate this sector immediately and warn the core worlds. Agreed, Tae-jin said. But I need a crew first. I cannot operate this ship alone. Krex considered this. When we reach the nearest station, I will help you find people. The Coalition owes you a debt. The combined fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the battle site behind. They arrived at Coalition Station Vera 9 6 hours later. The station was massive, a cylinder of metal and glass floating in space, home to thousands of beings from dozens of species. Tae-jin docked Sentinel Prime carefully, trying to ignore the stares from station personnel. News of the progenitor ship had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see it. War Leader Krex met him at the docking port, accompanied by several other Coalition officers. Among them was a tall, elegant being with pale skin and large eyes, an Asheran telepath. This is High Arbiter Velena, Krex said. She represents the Coalition Council. She wishes to speak with you. Velena inclined her head gracefully. Thank you for your service, Captain Tae-jin. You have given us hope in a dark hour. I have taken the liberty of assembling potential crew members for your review. They are waiting in Conference Room 7. The conference room was small but comfortable. 5 beings sat around a table, each looking up as Tae-jin entered. The first was a human woman with short black hair and a military bearing. She stood and saluted. Hyojin, sir, former pilot with the Terran Defense Force. I heard you needed an engineer who can fly. Tae-jin shook her hand. Her grip was strong and confident. Can you handle a progenitor ship? Give me a week and I can handle anything, she replied with a slight smirk. The second was another human, younger, with bright eyes and an eager expression. Bo-Ra, xenobiologist and archaeologist. I have studied progenitor technology my entire life. Please let me help. Tae-jin liked her enthusiasm. Welcome aboard. The third was an insectoid Vrixen, her carapace gleaming under the lights. Multiple eyes studied him carefully. Lix, weapons specialist. I hear you pay well for dangerous work. I pay fairly, Tae-jin corrected. And this will be very dangerous. The Vrixen clicked her mandibles in what might have been a laugh. Even better. The fourth was an Asharan male older than Velena with silver markings on his skin. I am Orin. I was once a Coalition intelligence officer. I failed to prevent a massacre on my homeworld. Perhaps I can redeem myself here. Tae-jin saw pain in the telepath's eyes. Everyone deserves a second chance. The 5th chair was empty. Tae-jin looked at Velena questioningly. The last candidate declined, she explained. Many are afraid of what you represent. A human commanding progenitor technology unsettles people. Before Tae-jin could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed and an automated voice announced, Warning. Multiple hostile contacts detected at system perimeter. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Sentinel Prime's voice appeared in Tae-jin's mind. The Devourers have arrived. 47 vessels detected. They are moving to surround the station. Tae-jin looked at his new crew. Welcome to the team. I hope you are all ready because we are going back out there. Hyojin grinned. Finally, some action. They ran for the docking bay. Behind them, Velena called out, Good luck, Captain. The galaxy is counting on you. Sentinel Prime was already powering up when they arrived. The ship welcomed them aboard, opening passages and preparing stations for each crew member. Tae-jin took his place in the command chair, feeling his team settle into position around him. All systems ready, Sentinel Prime reported. Crew is in position. Awaiting your orders, operator. Tae-jin took a deep breath. Take us out. Let us show them what humans can do. Sentinel Prime launched from the station, joined by what remained of the Coalition defense fleet. Ahead of them, space was filled with Devourer vessels, their green lights pulsing like diseased stars. The battle for Vara 9 had begun. Part 5, The Eternal Watcher, showed them everything. Holographic displays filled the archive's main chamber, playing out the history of the progenitors in stunning detail. Tae-jin and his crew watched civilizations rise and fall, watched the progenitors achieve wonders that seemed like magic, and watched them make the mistake that doomed them. The Devourers cannot be destroyed by conventional means, the Watcher explained. They adapt too quickly, evolve too fast. The progenitors learned this through centuries of war. The dimensional prison was the only solution. But the seal is breaking, Bo-Ra said. What can we do? The Watcher was silent for a long moment. You have 3 options. First, you can use the Annihilation Pulse. It will destroy the Devourers completely, but at the cost of thousands of inhabited worlds. Second, you can attempt to reinforce the seal, but this would require the same sacrifice the progenitors made. An entire civilization must give their lives willingly. What is the third option? Tae-jin asked. Find a new solution, something the progenitors never considered, something only you can achieve. That is not an answer, Hyojin said, frustrated. No, the Watcher agreed, but it is hope. Before they could discuss further, Sentinel Prime interrupted. Incoming transmission from High Arbiter Valena. Priority 1. Valena's face appeared and she looked terrified. The Devourers have launched their assault. Over 300 vessels are attacking the Nexus system. If they break through, they will have a clear path to the core worlds. Tae-jin, we need you, please. Tae-jin looked at his crew. They all nodded without hesitation. We are coming, he said. Hold the line. Sentinel Prime jumped to hyperspace, racing toward the Nexus system. The journey took 8 hours. 8 hours during which Tae-jin and his crew prepared for what might be their final battle. Bo-Ra worked feverishly in the database, searching for anything that might help. Hyojin pushed the engines beyond their normal limits. Lix prepared every weapon system. Oren meditated, strengthening his mental defenses, and Tae-jin sat in the command chair thinking. The progenitors had failed because they tried to match the Devourers with power. But humans had never won through power alone. They won through adaptability, through creativity, through refusing to give up even when logic said they should. An idea began to form in his mind. It was crazy. It might not work. But it was better than any alternative. They emerged from hyperspace into chaos. The Nexus system was a war zone. Hundreds of ships fought desperately, coalition vessels trying to hold back the green tide of Devourer craft. Explosions lit up space like fireworks. Debris filled the void. Tae-jin could see War Leader Krex's flagship at the center of the formation, surrounded by protective cruisers. The coalition was fighting well, but they were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Sentinel Prime, Tae-jin said. Open a channel to all coalition ships. Channel open. This is Captain Tae-jin of the Sentinel Prime. I am transmitting tactical data from the Progenitor Archive. Use it, coordinate your attacks with mine, and trust me, we can win this. There was a moment of silence. Then Krex's voice came through strong and clear. You heard him? All ships follow the human's lead. The coalition fleet reformed, following the patterns Tae-jin transmitted. They stopped trying to match the Devourers ship for ship, and instead used coordinated strikes hitting weak points Sentinel Prime identified. It was working. The tide of battle began to shift. Devourer vessels fell one by one, unable to adapt fast enough to the changing tactics, but it was not enough. More Devourers kept coming, pouring through a massive dimensional rift that had opened at the edge of the system. For every one they destroyed, 2 more arrived. The rift, Bo-Ra said suddenly. That is how they are getting here. If we close it, we cut off their reinforcements, Tae-jin finished. Sentinel Prime, can you close a dimensional rift? Unknown. The progenitors never attempted it. However, my gravitic disruptors might be able to collapse the spatial structure. But I would need to get very close, and the energy required would leave us defenseless. Then we will need cover, Hyojin said. Tae-jin opened the channel again. All coalition ships, this is Sentinel Prime. We are going to close the rift, but we need time. Give us everything you have, Krex responded immediately. You heard him? All units protect Sentinel Prime at all costs. The Coalition fleet rallied around them, forming a protective wall between Sentinel Prime and the Devourers. Ships that had been enemies of humanity just days ago now threw themselves into harm's way to protect a single human vessel. Sentinel Prime pushed forward through the chaos. Devourer ships swarmed around them, but the Coalition held the line. Taejin watched vessels explode, watched good people die to buy him time, and felt the weight of their sacrifice. They reached the rift. Up close it was terrifying, a wound in reality itself pulsing with sick energy. Taejin could see the dimensional prison beyond it, cracking and failing. Charging gravitic disruptors to maximum, Sentinel Prime announced. This will take everything I have. Once I fire, I will have no power for weapons or shields. Do it, Taejin ordered. The disruptors fired. Reality twisted and screamed. The rift began to collapse, pulling Devourer ships into oblivion as it closed. Taejin could hear them shrieking, not with sound but directly in his mind. Rage and hunger and terrible intelligence. The rift sealed with a flash of brilliant light. Suddenly there were no more reinforcements. The remaining Devourer vessels, cut off from their main force, began to falter. But Sentinel Prime was drifting, powerless. A Devourer vessel broke through the Coalition line, heading straight for them. Taejin watched it come, unable to do anything. This was it. They had won, but he would not live to see the victory. Then War Leader Krex's flagship interposed itself between them and the Devourer. The reptilian commander's voice came through one last time. It has been an honor, Captain Taejin. Show them what humanity can do. Krex's ship rammed the Devourer at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. The battle was over. The remaining Devourer vessels were destroyed quickly by the Coalition fleet. Silence fell across the battlefield. Taejin sat in his chair, numb. Around him, his crew was equally silent. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. A transmission came through. It was Velena, tears streaming down her face. You did it. You actually did it. The Devourers are cut off. We have time now. Time to prepare, time to rebuild. Thank you. Over the next weeks, the galaxy began to heal. The Coalition offered Taejin a position as Marshal, with authority to coordinate defenses against any future Devourer threats. But he declined politely. He preferred to remain free, to explore with his crew and search for more progenitor technology. Because he knew the fight was not truly over. Some Devourer vessels had escaped, and one day they might return. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, Taejin stood on the observation deck of Sentinel Prime, watching stars drift past. His crew was with him. Hyojin working on engine upgrades, Bora cataloging data, Lix cleaning weapons, Orin meditating peacefully. They had become family. And together they would face whatever came next. The ship hummed around them, content and alive. In his mind, Taejin felt Sentinel Prime's presence warm and reassuring. Where shall we go next, operator? Taejin smiled. Somewhere interesting, somewhere no one has been before. As you command. Sentinel Prime jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward new adventures. Behind them, the galaxy was safe for now, and humanity had proven itself worthy of standing among the stars.